Yet another Arab summit. Arab leaders aim this time at achieving a comprehensive reconciliation. But could they overcome their differences first? And will this summit shape a unified Arab position with the US administration? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to Inside Story. I'm Hashim Al-Barra. The 21st Arab Summit, 17 heads of state, 2 days of meetings. The goal, to heal rifts over critical issues. Even before the summit commenced, it was evident that the target was not going to be an easy task. With the Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak refusing to attend and with Libya's President Gaddafi reportedly storming out of the opening session of the summit after lashing out at the monarch of Saudi Arabia. The key issues on the agenda of the summit include Palestinian reconciliation, the new right-wing Israeli government, the growing influence of Iran, and the dire crisis in Darfur. While they are divided on most issues, all members are united in their support for Sudan's President Omar al-Bashir, rejecting the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant for the president. He has been accused of war crimes and crimes against humanity. Al-Bashir criticized the ICC and accused it of sabotaging Darfur peace talks.
On the international scene, there is an urgent issue, which is the reform of the UN Security Council. It has been an undemocratic institution, deliberately selective in applying justice, and does not recognize that justice has only one single criteria. So it has applied double standards, targeting the weak and turning a blind eye on the criminals. How can the UN Security Council refer the Darfur issue to the so-called International Criminal Court while giving bribes in the very same resolution to America, exempting its civilian and military officials from the court's jurisdiction?
Syrian President Bashar al-Assad warned against forsaking Arab national sovereignty, as he put it, just to appease foreign powers.
In clearer terms, international legitimacy should never prevail over the national sovereignty of any country. What is happening to Sudan today has happened to Palestine in the early 20th century, and we are still paying for it up till now. We are not invited here today to criticize the arrest warrant or to comment on it, but to reject it altogether and to provide full support to Sudan at this phase of confrontation, which is bound to lead to the division of the Sudan.
Joining us to talk about the Arab Summit are our guests. They are all in Doha. Mundir Suleiman, he is Director of Center for American and Arab Studies in Washington, D.C. Also, Thomas Smetanka, he is the Middle East Ambassador for the EU Presidency. And finally, Khalid Al-Dakhil, he is a Saudi political sociologist. Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for joining us. Let me just start by asking Mr. Mundir Suleiman. Mundir, to what extent can this summit patch up ties between Arab states?
I think as a start, the atmosphere is very positive despite all division and rivalries. And although it's not a complete reconciliation between all the Arab leaders, but at least the strong position taken to support Sudan and to support the president of Sudan is creating a new atmosphere of positivism and assurance that the Arab position or the Arab aspiration, despite any misgivings or deficiency in the position of Sudan during the civil war that may have had some outrageous experiences, but at least the approach that's been taken by the International Court is not the right approach. And I think at least the position now among all leaders to support this president is creating a new precedent that at least they can stand to support one country when it's accused wrongly of crimes, while the real crimes is not being taken care of.
We'll definitely go back to talk more in detail about Sudan and Omar al-Bashir, but let me involve our guest. Khalid Al-Dakhil, do you think that this summit is generally different than old ones, which were described as being crippled by inefficiencies and divisions?
No, I don't think the summit is going to be that much different from the previous summits. I think The problem with the Arab summits has always been that it is more of an opportunity to take pictures, to deliver speeches, rhetorical speeches. And
so they talk the talk, but they don't eventually walk the walk.
that's what they did today. That's exactly what they did today. No one has ever attacked the real issue, the specific issues that split the Arab states.
The real divisions. By the way,
The real
do you
division.
think that Gaddafi's rant at King Abdullah today has the potential to undermine all efforts to reconcile Arab positions?
I think that's what the presidency of the summit, the government of Qatar, is trying to do. But I don't see in what al-Gaddafi said and what al-Gaddafi did and the way he did it really is going to help, at least in the long run, to reach some sort of a reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Libya and make it part of the so-called Arab reconciliation. I think the way he said it, the way he did it was just repugnant.
Okay. Mr. Thomas, we've been extensively covering this issue in Al Jazeera International from an Arab perspective. As a top advisor to the EU on the Middle East, what do you expect from this Arab summit?
Good question. We are here as observers. We are not here as political participants. What we would like to do, I think specifically, is that this summit keeps Arab Peace Initiative on the table. We consider that Arab Peace Initiative is something which is a very good basis for the solution of the Middle Eastern conflict, and we were concerned about what the positions of some Arab states were before the summit. So confirming that this is alive and this is still valid is very important. That's what we would like to see.
And this is definitely an issue which brings us to the delicate topic of divisions. When they were united in 2001-2, they floated the idea of an initiative with the Israelis. Aren't you a little bit concerned that with some cracks there in the Arab position, this could undermine the peace initiative with Israel?
Well, I think that that's something what we have been watching before and what we were concerned that's why I'm mentioning it, that we would very much like to see continuation of the path towards the negotiated solution of the Middle Eastern conflict, and the Arab Peace Initiative is something that is crucial in that matter.
But you know, the problem is that neither the Americans nor the Israelis picked up the initiative and responded positively to it.
I think that was the reason why King Abdullah threatened in Kuwait summit too,
Exactly.
that the Arabs would definitely
Exactly.
put it out from the table. All right, let me involve Mr. Munthar Suleiman. Munthar Suleiman, since we're talking about the divisions, is this a platform that can bring together the two trends in the Arab world, Syria on one hand, and Syria and Qatar on one hand, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Egypt on the other hand, even when Hosni Mubarak decided not to attend this summit?
I think the camp that has been perceived and in some actuality that been aligned with the United States is inching, although it's not completely, toward the other position, but there is no one in Arab world will admit mistakes anyway. So it seems to me the total approach to deal with the core issues, especially the Arab-Israeli issues, or the relation with the West or relation with the United States, has been conducted in atmosphere of only the benefit of each individual state. To certain degrees, some states, they were working as a functionaries for the United States and its plan in the region. The plan of United States in the region is faltering. And also, the Israelis are moving toward more negative and extremism, right-wing policies that did not apply any time or condone or accept international legitimacy or international accords. So to a certain degree, I think we are seeing a movement slowly toward a different approach. Although this summit is not saying that the Arab initiative is dead, but to certain degrees, it's been taken as a tactical move now to maintain it on the table But I think the other option, the option of enforcing other source of power like resistance, the aspiration of the Arab world, they will push toward different.
Okay, to do that, they have to overcome unity, and I think that was the reason why the Emir of Qatar, the host of the summit, laid out the reasons why he thinks the Arab countries should unite.
The current crisis has occupied the attention of the world away from our causes, especially now there is a new and a different US administration. In Israel, general elections have taken place, bringing a new government, and we should monitor the impact of this government on our security in the region. There are developments in our region that we should deal with in a manner that would protect the region from additional turbulence. Around the world, we notice changes in the power spheres, states coming together, and new nationalistic projects are emerging, leading our citizens to wonder what has happened to the Arab World Project.
Egyptian author and analyst Mohammed Hassanin Haikal advised the Arab leaders to go to the summit without an agenda covering a number of issues, but to focus rather on the dangers the world and the Arab region in particular are facing.
This summit should start without an agenda. The summit leaders should try to explore the changes currently affecting the world, because we live in a very serious phase, witnessing a highly fluid world. We are facing a state of anarchy, and if it were possible for this nation, the Arab nation, represented in its leadership, to do anything, they would have to go without an agenda, and they would have to try and figure out how to approach this turbulent region without a navigation compass.
With us, our guests, Mundir Suleiman, Thomas Smetanka, and Khalid Adkhil. Mr. Khalid, do you think that this summit could bolster a unified Arab stance in dealing with the US administration?
No, I don't think there is this chance, of developing a united Arab position vis-a-vis the United States. Maybe they can do something like that, or get closer to that on the question of the Palestinians. But regarding the other issues, Lebanon, Iraq, Darfur, there are already differences. The differences shown themselves last night during the foreign ministers' meeting. There is a difference between the Arab League's position, which represent most of the Arab foreign ministers, or the Arab governments, and the Sudanese government. The Sudanese, they want the Arabs to reject out of hand the International Criminal Court's decision here. The Arabs, they don't want to do that. They want to negotiate. They want to postpone the court's order so that they can negotiate over it. There is already a difference on this issue. There is a difference over the question or the issue of Lebanon and the relationship, or the sort of relationship that should exist between Syria and Lebanon.
We'll come back to talk in detail about these things. Mr. Thomas, Khalid was talking about one of the stumbling blocks to talk between the international community and the Arab world is Sudan. You've heard Arab leaders saying in this summit that they will ask the international community to cancel the proceedings of the ICC. How do you respond to that?
Well, if it's the decision of the Arab Summit, so let the Arab leaders proceed in that way.
Aren't you concerned that this is going to create more chasm between the EU, the Arab world?
I must say I wouldn't like to particularly enter this matter, because we have heard that this is the matter that was very much politicized. We don't consider it a political decision, so I wouldn't like to discuss it as a political matter. For me, I would say this was a judicial procedure, and I would not discuss it in political consequences or in political environment, I would say.
Mundir, will the Arabs now be able to engage the Americans in the Middle East while they are distracted with the financial crisis?
I think this administration has to concentrate on the economic crisis, but cannot also withdraw from the world. We should learn a lesson so far from the 60 days of new administration. The approach to regional issue is clearly based on what the region can add, can help, can assist in providing solution to the regional conflicts. Look, for instance, Afghanistan. Afghanistan is somewhat semi-escalation from Obama, remind us of the war in Vietnam by the democratic administration. But to a certain degree, Pakistan now is a core base for this strategy, in addition to dialogue with Iran and others in the region. The Arabs should take a lesson that since it's going to be a regional approach, whether to Iraq or to the Palestine issue or any other issue related to the Arab countries, they need to have a unified position, because now we live in a world that we can shape it more by having more active role.
Khalid, Mundir Suleiman was talking about the Arab world having a strong stance to be able to promote their own issues. One of the main issues is how to deal with Syria, which is seen by Saudis, by the Egyptians and by the Jordanians as having strong ties with Iran, which is a destabilizing factor for them. You think that now with the Americans showing more willingness to talk to the Syrians, going to create more problems for the Saudis and Jordanians?
I think the aim of the whole movement, from the Americans, the Europeans and the Arabs, is not really Syria. The goal is Iran. That's the main concern for the Americans and for the Arabs. The Arabs are very upset that Syria allowed itself to be used by the Iranians as a channel to get into and meddle into the Arab politics, and to be used by the Iranians as a negotiating card with the Americans and with the other Arabs, raising this issue, the so-called resistance.
So, but why can't Arab countries use Syria as a linchpin to talk to the Iranians and bring the Iranians to the Arab world?
I think that the whole Arabs are a mess. They seem to be confused.
So you don't
the
buy
Saudis,
into
the Egyptians and the Syrians.
Okay.
Now the Saudis and the Egyptians, they complain about the growing influence of Iran. But they are the reasons, because they created this vacuum and allowed the Iranians to get in. They complain about Syria, and Syria complains about them. Neither the Syrians, nor the Egyptians, nor the Saudis are very clear, really.
So you're talking about a very complex situation in the Middle East.
Very complex situation, yes.
Thomas, definitely the Europeans and the Americans will be involved in the quartet, any talks in the future between the Arabs and the Israelis. What do you hope the Arab world to show to the Americans and to the Europeans in terms of the peace process?
Well, I think there is not much to say more than I already mentioned.
Are there any benchmarks
that
from
means,
a European perspective?
That means we would very much like to see Arab Peace Initiative valid and being still offered and on the table. We hope that we can move with the quartet soon. We are waiting for the American administration that apparently show that they will be involved and they want to be involved very soon. But hopefully we will have George Mitchell going to the Middle East soon, and we will see what the new Israeli government, where it stands and what their positions are, and after that we will see what way we can go. Hopefully we will still have the possibility of wider Arab world cooperating.
Mundir, there's been some huge expectations here in the Arab world with the new administration. You think this is something which has been exaggerated here in the Arab world? I mean, the ability of this administration to bring about a dramatic change in this part of the world?
I think the aspiration of the world is for Obama to succeed. Unfortunately, Obama cannot do it alone. Like I was trying at the beginning, previous question, to talk about the regional power. The Arabs, if they cannot exercise their presence as a regional
Very
power
briefly, please,
and benefit from, from the other regional power like Turkey and Iran, they will not be able to the administration need to be convinced to take into account the Arab rights and Arab demands. If they cannot act together as a unit, the Arabs, and take into account the positive projection of the power of Turkey and Iran in the Arab world. By the way, the competing forces, they are competing about an Arab issue. Why we should be taking a position to take them as enemies instead of trying to utilize their power to enhance our regional power as an Arab. So I think this is what going to convince the Obama administration to be involved more than just on the periphery or by style, which is up to now, it's only by style, it's some positive with mixed signals. But in order to convince them to be involved and implement UN resolution, they need to act together with unified position.
Since we're talking about the Middle East, and the Palestinian issue definitely comes to the front, Mr. Khalid, we've seen the huge differences between Saudi Arabia, Egypt on one hand, Syria, Qatar on the other hand, on how to deal with the Palestinian reconciliation issue and the Palestinian factions. How can these two movements or groups in the Arab world come together and think about a better way to unite the Palestinians?
I think each one is using the Palestinian issue as a card. I don't think it is the main issue that splits the Arab world. The main issue is the nature of the Arab regime in each Arab country and the nature of the regional Arab order. That's the problem. The Syrians are concerned with the International Tribunal, and they are concerned about getting back the Lebanese Kurds because they see themselves without Lebanon as being isolated in the Sham region, vis-a-vis the Israelis, the enemy, the most powerful, and the state that is supported by the West, especially the United States. So they need the Lebanese Kurd because they cannot get hold of the Jordanians nor the Palestinians. The Palestinians are, in the end, they will go with Egypt. So if they don't get Lebanon, then the
situation is going to get worse
for them.
Well, unfortunately, we have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you very much indeed, Khalid Al-Dakhil, Professor of Political Sociology in Saudi Arabia, Mr. Thomas Betanka, Middle East Ambassador for the EU, and Mr. Mundir Suleiman, Director of the Center for American and Arab Studies in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.